What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So, it's been a while, been a few weeks, and I've just been busy. I've had a bunch of gigs and stuff, but I have had this topic in my mind for the past week or two, and it's been kind of rolling around. I've been trying to think about how to approach this video, right? Because it's kind of a controversial topic, maybe, and I don't want it to come off like, I don't want to like offend anybody or anything like that with this topic, right? But with that being said, I just feel like it's something I wanted to make a video about to address, right? I'm sure we've all seen these people in like guitar groups on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? Like this like reverse guitar snobbery is what I'm gonna call it, right? Like you're kind of used to like your traditional guitar snob, right? The person that only thinks $10,000 guitars are worth their time. Anything else is just worthless, right? We've all kind of run into those kind of people, but there's this newer kind of phenomenon in the guitar community of the exact opposite thing, but the same mentality. And to me, it's even more ridiculous and kind of baffling than just the traditional guitar snob, right? Because it's like people who are being guitar snobs about like $200 Amazon guitars, and it's super mind-blowing, to me anyway, and I kind of just want to talk about it a little bit, right? So you'll see these people in forums and groups and stuff being like, you're stupid, or you wasted your money, or why would you ever buy a whatever, an ESP, a Paul Reed Smith, a Gibson, Taylor, whatever it is, right? Why would you ever spend more than $500 on a guitar? You're insane. And they kind of just like fly this flag of like super cheap knockoff brand stuff. And like, I've reviewed Amazon guitar before. I had one of the Feasley guitars, and it was a good guitar. I've had a couple of Harley Bentons. One of them was way better than the other one, right? And, I've come across a couple of these things setting guitars up for people, like I do for a living. Some brands that come to mind are like Firefly and Grote, stuff like that. I've had my hands on a couple of these things, and like to varying levels of success with them, right? Like some of them are pretty good. Some of them are just trash, like just like literal firewood. So I don't get this like reverse guitar snobbery thing, and so it kind of had me thinking down this path of like, how could you become this person? How could you wind up there, right? And so this is where I think it gets a little controversial, but it's a topic that I've discussed with other people, and this is kind of the conclusion that I've come to. There's no accounting for taste, right? And what I mean by that is we all have that friend, right, who you can take them to like a really nice restaurant, that has like a really good like gourmet hamburger, on like a fancy bun with whatever, right, like a $20 hamburger, and they'll hate it and swear up and down all day long that the McDonald's hamburger is better, right? Like they'd rather just have like a McDouble or something. You have that friend that thinks you're crazy because you spent $10 on a cigar, and they're like, I don't know why you wouldn't just buy Black and Milds. It's the same thing, right? That friend that thinks your $100 bottle of scotch or bourbon is ridiculous, and they can't taste the difference between it and the $10 bottle of bottom shelf house whiskey or whatever, right? The metaphors go on and on, right? But you know these people, okay? And there's no accounting for taste, right? Those types of people don't have a very like developed palate, right? Like they don't understand why this steak, this filet mignon or whatever, they don't understand, they can't taste why it's a better cut of meat than like their cheap hamburger. Like they can't taste it, they don't understand it. And this isn't coming from like a condescending place, it's not coming from like a trash talking type of place. Like, I'm just being analytical about it, right? They just can't literally taste the difference between the two things. They don't know why this one is better than this other one. And I think you can apply that same thing to non-food or like drink items too. You can apply it to guitars and other instruments and stuff as well. Like, just because you don't understand why a $1,500 guitar is a better guitar than a $200 guitar, like, doesn't mean that everyone else is stupid for buying $1,500 guitars. It just means you don't understand, you don't have the capabilities of noticing why it's better or whatnot. You just haven't developed that yet. And to me, that's a thing that comes with time and experience. And not just time and experience doing the same things over and over again, like time and experience doing different things and trying different things. Like, I've owned very inexpensive guitars. I've owned very expensive guitars. I've owned, so many different brands of guitars, ESPs and Ibanez's and Schecters and Gibsons and Epiphones and Fenders and Paul Reed Smiths, and I've owned so many different types and brands of guitars, right? And I've really had a lot of time and experience setting up guitars and working on guitars and seeing inside of them and like how they're made and what they're constructed out of, the different components and the woods and parts and whatnot, right? And there is a difference in quality in the type of wood they use in more expensive guitars, the type of electronics they use, the way they're set up, the materials, the raw material, like the metal and the frets and the tuning machines, whatever, right? Plastic for the nut versus bone or tusk or something like that, right? There are these differences, and just like with anything else, it all has to do with your palate, right? Like, not your physical like palate in your mouth for taste, but just like your palate in general, and your ability or capability to perceive and understand things and why they're different and how they're different. Just because you can't doesn't mean that it isn't, right? And vice versa with the more traditional guitar snob. Like, yes, your $10,000 guitar is probably a really good guitar, but that doesn't mean that a $1,000 guitar is like literal firewood. It doesn't mean that either. Like, but I think there's enough of that, and there's enough of people that kind of see the ridiculousness in that. So I don't want you to think this is just like a one-sided thing, but I'm going to just focus on the Reverse Guitar Snob who just thinks that his $200 Firefly guitar from Amazon is just as good in every way, form, and fashion as a custom shop Les Paul or Paul Reed Smith or something, right? And I don't know, it's just something that I'm seeing a lot more of lately, like in YouTube comments and Facebook groups and stuff like that. So my advice to this type of person would be to just experience more things. Like, just get out, play more things, and try to understand them, and approach them with like a empty palette, if you will. Like, don't go into it with an agenda. Don't go into it automatically thinking, I'm going to hate everything about this expensive guitar. I'm going to find every reason to trash talk it. And I feel like that's what a lot of these people do. When they do play an expensive guitar, they just go into it already with their preconceived, perception of like, I'm going to hate on this. And then they just find every reason to self-affirm their projections about that instrument, right? So don't do that. There is a difference between an expensive guitar and a cheap off-brand knockoff guitar, right? There is a difference. You need to learn to perceive and understand those differences. Don't be that guy. And don't get on the internet and just talk a bunch of mad crap about stuff you don't know. And I see people talk about this all the time. Joe Bonamassa makes such a great point in multiple videos I've seen of him where he was like, people will talk about 59 Les Pauls, and they'll get on the internet and they'll argue all day long about, oh, the necks are like this, or the pickups are like this, blah, 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 blah. And then when you ask them if they've ever owned a 59 Les Paul, they're like, well, no, I haven't. Okay, then why do you even have an opinion about it, right? Like, if you've only ever owned $200 guitars, like, why do you don't even, you shouldn't even have an opinion about a $6,000 guitar. If you've never played one or owned one or anything, why do you even have an opinion about it, right? Like, because you don't know. So, I don't know, that's an internet thing. That's just a thing people on the internet do. They just get on the internet, and they have an opinion, and they have very little, if zero, actuality behind them to back it up. So, don't be that person. You know, and again, this isn't like an attack on those kind of people. It's not an attack on anyone that, if you like cheaper guitars and that's all you have, I mean, that's fine. Like I said, I've had plenty of inexpensive guitars that were really good guitars that I liked. I mean, I used to tour with a $400 LTD. You know, I recorded one of my old band's albums with that $400 LTD. Like, you can get the job done with anything you have access to. But don't be so quick to just like be a hater on the things you know, I think a lot of people do that too. They just like, well, I can't afford this, so I'm going to hate on it. And, you know, don't be that way. You shouldn't be the other way either. You shouldn't hate on things just because you can afford something in a different price bracket. You shouldn't hate on this other stuff either. Don't hate on it just for the sake of hating on it. Like, I mean, yeah, if you come across, like, in my, you know, experience with guitars, when I come across things that I think are bad, I tell people that they're bad, because I don't want people to waste their money on those things. I don't want people to buy something that's trash, and then they hit me up, and they want me to try and overhaul it and fix it for them, and all this stuff and everything, and they wind up paying somebody like me a whole bunch of money to try and, like, fix up this thing they bought when, like, they should have just spent more money in the first place, and now they wouldn't have had to do any of this, right? Like, so many, you know, cheap guitars have come through my setup, you know, bench here, where they needed all kinds of things done to them, and, you know, if you would have just bought a $400 or $500 guitar, you, like, wouldn't be in this predicament, you know, where now you have this thing that's, like, unplayable, and you got to do all this work to, and stuff like that, right? So, and again, that's not every one of them, but it's more of those than it is things like these, you know. I don't get a lot of people who are like, I just bought this brand new Fender or Gibson and it's completely unplayable. That doesn't happen as often as it does with these lower end instruments that I see. So that's kind of my whole point. I'm just trying to help people not waste their money when I bring up things like this. I'm not attacking that stuff or attacking the people that are into it, but you have to understand that there is a reality, that there's a reason why some of these guitars cost more money than other guitars do, and just because you don't have the ability to perceive the differences, that says more about you than it does the guitars, right? So don't be that guy. So hope you liked the video. Normally my videos aren't this, you know, like, whatever. I try to keep it light and just talk about the stuff I do like, talk about the kind of gear I do enjoy. But every now and then, I feel like I got to make a video like this where I'm, like, pointing out something bad about the guitar community, right? Because there's a lot of good stuff in the guitar community, but there's a lot of junk and toxic crap in it too. So every now and then you kind of have to, you know, point the lens inward and call that stuff out, right? So next video will be a lot more on brand and a lot cooler, I promise. I've gotten some neat gear in lately, and I haven't had time to make videos about any of it, and so I kind of want to do that. So that's what the plan is moving forward. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and, you know, leave me a comment and let me know, like, if you've been one of these people, or if you are one of these people, like, you know, again, no hate. I really do want to have like a legitimate conversation, you know, and like help people to understand and comprehend like why guitars cost the money they do and how they're better than other guitars, stuff like that. Like, I'm a genuine guitar nerd. I love everything about the guitar, and you know, I'm a professional guitar tech, whatever, you know, and I want people to love the instrument as much as I do, and I want them to understand it, and so that's my goal. So hope you guys like the video, and I'll be back soon.